ਬੀਕੌਰ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਪਲੱਸ ਟੀਵੀ ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਗਿਆਨ ਸਵੀਟ ਸ਼ਾਪ ਐਬਸਫੋਰਡ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹੋ ਜਦੋਂ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨਸ ਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਹੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਚੁਣਿੰਦਾ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅੱਗੇ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਈਏ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਆਉਣ ਵਾਲੀਆਂ ਪੀੜ੍ਹੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੁਝ ਫਾਇਦਾ ਹੋਵੇ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਫਿਊਚਰ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਅੱਗੇ ਸੋਚਣ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸੋਚਣ ਕਿ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਚੇਂਜ ਕੀ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਉਣੀ ਹੈ। ਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਟਰੱਕਿੰਗ ਇੰਡਸਟਰੀ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਟਰੱਕਿੰਗ ਇੰਡਸਟਰੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਕੰਪਨੀਆਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਕੰਮ ਕਰ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਨੇ, ਪਰ ਹਾਈਵੇ ਕਿੰਗ ਦੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਕੰਟੈਕਟ ਰਹਿੰਦਾ ਆ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ, ਵੱਖ-ਵੱਖ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਲੋਕ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜਦੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਦੂਜੇ ਪਾਸੇ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਹੀ ਸੋਸ਼ਲ ਕਾਜ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਸੋਸ਼ਲ ਕੰਮਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਆਪਣਾ ਯੋਗਦਾਨ ਪਾਉਂਦੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ। ਜੈਸ ਅਰੋੜਾ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਾਫੀ ਲੰਬੇ ਅਰਸੇ ਤੋਂ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਜਾਣਦੀ ਆ, ਟਰੱਕਿੰਗ ਇੰਡਸਟਰੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਨਾਂ ਆ ਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਸਟੀਵ ਹੁਣਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਥੇ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ ਹੋਏ ਆ, ਸਾਰਾ ਦੇਖ ਰੇਖ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਚੇਂਜ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਉਣੀ। ਪਿਛਲੇ ਕੁਝ ਸਮੇਂ ਤੋਂ ਜੋ ਕੁਛ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਫ਼ਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਉਹ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹੋ। ਸੋ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਜੈਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਇਸ ਮੀਟ ਗ੍ਰੀਟ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਤੇ ਥੋੜ੍ਹੀ ਜਿਹੀ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਕਿ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਵਰਗਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਿਹਾ, ਬਹੁਤ ਬਦਲ ਗਿਆ, ਬਹੁਤ ਕੁਝ ਬਦਲ ਗਿਆ ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਰਲ ਕੇ ਇੱਕ ਨਵੀਂ ਚੇਂਜ ਲਿਆਉਣ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਆ। ਸੋ ਜੈਸ ਜੀ ਮੇਰੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਜੀ।
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਤੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸਰੋਤਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਜੀ।
ਜੈਸ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਕੰਗਰੈਚੁਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ, ਬੜਾ ਸਕਸੈਸਫੁਲ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਚਲਾਉਂਦੇ ਹੋ, ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਨਾਲ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਕੰਮਾਂ 'ਚ ਵੀ ਐਕਟਿਵ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੋ। ਪਰ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਕਲ ਸਾਈਡ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਸੋ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਕੁਝ ਇੰਟਰਸਟ ਇੱਧਰ ਵੀ ਆ। ਮੈਂ ਇਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਹੂੰਗੀ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਰਨ ਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਆ, ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਫਿਊਚਰ 'ਚ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਸੋਚੋ, ਪਰ ਅੱਜ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਟੀਵ ਦੇ ਮੀਟ ਗ੍ਰੀਟ ਨੂੰ ਆਰਗੇਨਾਈਜ਼ ਕੀਤਾ, ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਟੀਮ ਸਾਰੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਹੈਲਪ ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ। ਨੋਮੀਨੇਸ਼ਨ ਫਾਰਮ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਸਟੀਵ ਕੌਣ ਆ। ਸੋ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਦੱਸੋ ਕਿ ਇੱਧਰਲੇ ਪਾਸੇ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਝੁਕਾਅ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਹੋਇਆ, ਕੀ ਕਾਰਨ ਆ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਟੀਵ ਹੋਣਾ ਦੀ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਏ ਹੋ?
ਹਾਂਜੀ, ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡਾ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਆਈ ਤੇ ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਪੁੱਛਣ ਲਈ। ਦੇਖੋ ਜੀ ਬਲਿੰਦਰ ਜੀ, ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਇਹ ਹੈ ਸਾਡੀ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਆ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਟੈਕਸਿਸ ਵਧੇ ਹੋਏ ਆ, ਕਿੰਨੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਰਿਸੈਸ਼ਨ ਆ। ਸਾਡੇ ਲਾਟ ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਡਾਲਰ ਦੀ ਇੱਕ ਲਾਟ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਤੇ ਇੰਨਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਏਰੀਆ ਹੈਗਾ। ਜਦੋਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਕ੍ਰਾਸ ਦ ਕੰਟਰੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਸਾਰਾ ਕੁਝ ਸਸਤਾ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪ ਹੀ ਦੇਖ ਲਓ ਵੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਇੰਨੀਆਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਪਾਲਿਸੀਆਂ ਗਲਤ ਕਰਕੇ ਜਾਂ ਗੌਰਮੈਂਟ ਦੀ ਗਲਤ ਪਾਲਿਸੀ ਨੀਤੀਆਂ ਕਰਕੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਅੱਜ ਇਸ ਥਾਂ 'ਤੇ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਹਸਪਤਾਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੋਈ ਇਲਾਜ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ। ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਇੱਕ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹਾ ਕੰਟਰੀ ਗਿਣਿਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਸਟੱਡੀ ਫ੍ਰੀ ਅਤੇ ਮੈਡੀਕਲ ਫ੍ਰੀ ਕਰਕੇ ਗਿਣਿਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਸੀ, ਪਰ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਉਹ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ। ਸੋ ਸਾਡੀ ਟਰੱਕਿੰਗ ਦਾ ਦੇਖ ਲਓ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਬੁਰਾ ਹਾਲ ਆ ਜੀ, ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਬੁਰਾ ਹਾਲ ਆ। ਵੀ ਇੱਕ ਓਨਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਫਿਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਪਰ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਕੋਈ ਝੂਠ ਹੀ ਬੋਲਦਾ ਹੋ, ਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਮਨੀ ਬਣਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਤਾਂ। ਅਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਿਆ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਨੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੈਲਪ ਕੀਤੀ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਕੀਤਾ, ਮੇਰੇ 'ਤੇ ਮਾੜਾ ਟਾਈਮ 'ਚ ਵੀ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੇ ਮੇਰਾ ਸਾਥ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਜੀ। ਅਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਜੇ ਮੈਂ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਲਈ ਕੁਛ ਕਰ ਸਕਦਾ ਜਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਰਾਈਟ ਬੰਦੇ ਦੀ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਨਾਲ ਜਾਣਤ ਕਰਾ ਸਕਦਾ ਅਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਮੇਰਾ ਵੀ ਕੁਛ ਚੀਜ਼ ਮੈਂ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਬੈਕ ਦੇ ਸਕਦਾ।
ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਲੋਕੀ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਲਾਸਟ ਮਿੰਟ ਤੱਕ ਵੇਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ। ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਕਿ ਲੋਕੀ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕੁਛ ਆ, ਕਰਦੇ ਕੁਛ ਆ। ਹਰ ਕੋਈ ਇਨਸਾਨ ਆਪਣੇ ਲਈ ਸੋਚਦਾ ਆ, ਹਰ ਕੋਈ ਇਨਸਾਨ ਸੋਚਦਾ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹੜੀ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਨੂੰ ਵੋਟ ਦੇਣੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਫੋਰਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ, ਪਰ ਐਜੂਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਆ। ਸੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਅੱਜ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੈਦਰਿੰਗ ਕੀਤੀ ਆ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਟੀਵ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਸਾਰਾ ਕੁਛ ਦੱਸਣ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕੀਤੀ ਆ। ਕੌਣ ਆ ਸਟੀਵ, ਕਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਪਾਲਿਸੀਜ਼ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਉਣੀਆਂ ਉਹਨੇ, ਕਿਵੇਂ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਚੇਂਜ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਉਣੀ ਆ। ਸੋ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਟੀਵ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲੇ ਸੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕੀ ਸਵਾਲ ਸੀ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਹੜੀ ਚੇਂਜ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ?
ਹਾਂਜੀ, ਇਹੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਵੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ, ਸਾਡੀਆਂ ਟਰੱਕ ਪਾਰਕਿੰਗ ਦਾ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਸਾਡਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਲਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਜੋ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਮੈਂ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦਾ ਆਇਆ, ਮੈਂ ਇਹੀ ਦੇਖ ਰਿਹਾ ਵੀ ਟਰੱਕ ਪਾਰਕਿੰਗ ਨੂੰ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਟਰੱਕ ਪਾਰਕਿੰਗ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਿਲ ਰਹੀ। ਅਸੀਂ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਸਕਸੈਸ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ? ਸਾਨੂੰ ਹਰੇਕ ਬੰਦਾ ਟਰੱਕ ਚਲਾਉਂਦਾ ਇੱਥੇ ਐਬਸਫੋਰਡ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਂ ਲੈਂਗਲੀ ਏਰੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ, ਅਤੇ ਸਾਡਾ ਇਹ ਹਾਲ ਹੈ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਟਰੱਕ ਪਾਰਕਿੰਗ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਐਂ ਟਰੀਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ। ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਪ੍ਰੋਪਰ ਵਾਸ਼ਰੂਮ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਈ ਲੌਗ ਲਾਤੀਆਂ, ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਪਰ ਵਾਸ਼ਰੂਮ ਨਹੀਂ, ਰਾਤ ਰਹਿਣ ਨੂੰ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ। ਅਤੇ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਬੜੀਆਂ ਵੱਡੀਆਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਆ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਗਰਾਊਂਡ ਲੈਵਲ 'ਤੇ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਅਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਸਟੀਵ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ ਇਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ, ਉਹ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਯਾਰ ਸਾਡੀਆਂ ਪਾਲਿਸੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਸਾਰਾ ਕੁਝ ਚੇਂਜ ਕਰਨ ਨੂੰ ਹੈਗਾ। ਸਾਡੇ ਮੈਡੀਕਲ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡਾ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਆ, ਸੋਜੀ ਦਾ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡਾ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਸਾਡਾ ਬੱਚੇ ਆ, ਅਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੋਜੀ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਮੁਜ਼ਾਹਰੇ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਜਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਫੜ ਕੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਗਲਤ ਹੋ ਰਹੀਆਂ, ਪਰ ਅੱਜ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਨੂੰ ਮੌਕਾ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਦੀ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਉਠਾਈਏ ਅਤੇ ਸਹੀ ਬੰਦੇ ਨੂੰ ਵੋਟ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਿਤਾਈਏ।
ਟਰੱਕਿੰਗ ਦੇ ਇਸ਼ੂਜ਼ ਬੜੇ ਲੰਬੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਤੋਂ ਚੱਲੇ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਹੈ। ਸੋਜੀ ਦੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਲਈ ਵੀ ਲੋਕੀ ਬੜੇ ਲੰਬੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਤੋਂ ਮੁਜ਼ਾਹਰੇ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ। ਹਸਪੀਟਲ ਦੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਆ। ਇਸ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਦੀ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਆ, ਐਕਸਟੋਰਸ਼ਨਸ ਲੈਟਰ ਆਉਂਦੀਆਂ, ਐਕਸਟੋਰਸ਼ਨਸ ਕਾਲ ਆਉਂਦੀਆਂ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬੜਾ ਸਫ਼ਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਆ। ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ 'ਚ ਕੁਛ ਸਮਾਂ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹਾ ਆ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਸ ਸਮੇਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਦੋਂ ਅੱਜ ਵੀ ਯਾਦ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਰੌਂਗਟੇ ਖੜੇ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ। ਸੋ ਉਸ ਸਮੇਂ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਮਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਇਆ ਕਿ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਮ 'ਤੇ ਵੀ ਕੋਈ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਕ੍ਰਿਮੀਨਲਸ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਇਸ ਮੁਲਕ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਆ ਗਲਤ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਦਾ ਸਹਾਰਾ ਲੈ ਕੇ, ਔਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਐਕਸਟੋਰਸ਼ਨਸ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਨੂੰ ਧਮਕੀਆਂ ਦਿੱਤੀਆਂ ਜਾਂਦੀਆਂ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਸ਼ਿਕਾਰ ਹੋ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਆ। ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਵਾਲ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ ਸਟੀਵ ਹੋਣਾ ਨੂੰ?
ਹਾਂਜੀ, ਮੈਂ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ, ਪਰ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਦੀ ਲਿਬਰਲ ਗੌਰਮੈਂਟ ਆਈ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਲਾਭ ਬੜੇ ਪੱਧਰੇ ਕਰਤੇ ਜਾਂ ਨਰਮ ਕਰਤੇ, ਉਹਦੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬੇਲ ਮਿਲ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਆ। ਸੋ ਹਰ ਬੰਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਸੋਚਦਾ ਵੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਿਹੜਾ ਜੇਲ੍ਹ ਹੋਣੀ ਆ। ਸੋ ਹੁਣ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਹੀ ਆ ਵੀ ਸਟਾਪ ਦ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਮ। ਸੋ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਆ ਜਾਂਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ, ਲਾ ਸਖਤ ਕਰਨੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਸਹੀ ਕਰਨੀ ਆ। ਬਿਨਾਂ ਸਕੈਨਿੰਗ ਤੋਂ ਬੰਦੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ 'ਚ ਵਾੜੇ, ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਡਰੋਪ ਬਾਲ ਸੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਲਿਬਰਲ ਗੌਰਮੈਂਟ ਨੇ। ਤਾਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਹੀ ਪਤਾ ਵੀ ਕੀ ਲਿਬਰਲ ਨੇ ਕੀਤਾ ਜੀ। ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੋਈ ਦੋ ਰਾਇ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ। ਸਾਨੂੰ ਗੌਰਮੈਂਟ ਚੇਂਜ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਆ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਰਿਕੁਐਸਟ ਕਰਦਾ ਸਾਡੀ ਸਾਰੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਨੂੰ ਇਹਦੇ ਵੱਧ ਚੜ੍ਹ ਕੇ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਪਾਉਣ ਤੇ ਸਹੀ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਨੂੰ ਵੋਟ ਪਾਉਣ।
ਜੀ, ਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਹਾਈਵੇ ਕਿੰਗ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਹੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੋਜ਼ਿਟਿਵ ਕੰਮਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅੱਗੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ। ਆਪਣੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਮੈਸੇਜ ਦੇਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ?
ਜੀ, ਮੈਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਰਲ ਮਿਲ ਕੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਹੀ ਗੌਰਮੈਂਟ ਮੂਹਰੇ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਈਏ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਵਰਗਾ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਬਣਾਈਏ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਾਡਾ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਡ੍ਰੀਮ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀ, ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਖੁਸ਼ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਪਿਆਰ ਨਾਲ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਸੀ। ਸਾਡੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਡੀ ਦੂਜੀਆਂ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀਆਂ ਬੜੇ ਉੱਚੇ ਦਰਜੇ ਨਾਲ ਦੇਖੀ ਜਾਂਦੀਆਂ ਸੀ। ਸਾਡੇ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰੇ, ਸਾਡੇ 24 ਘੰਟੇ ਲੰਗਰ, ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਸਿੰਘ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬੱਸ 'ਚ ਬਹਿ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਸੀ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਬੜੇ ਪਿਆਰ ਨਾਲ ਸਤਿਕਾਰ ਨਾਲ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਸੀ। ਅਸੀਂ ਉਸ ਕੌਮ ਦੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਰਿਕੁਐਸਟ ਹੀ ਕਰ ਸਕਦਾ ਜੀ ਵੀ ਚੰਗਾ ਸਮਝ ਕੇ ਆਪਦੀ ਸੋਚ ਸਮਝ ਕੇ ਵੋਟ ਪਾਓ। ਇਹ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਆ, ਕੋਈ ਸਾਡੀ ਇਕੱਲੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ
ਜੀ। ਬਹੁਤ ਮਿਹਰਬਾਨੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਜੈਸੀ। ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਵੈਰੀ ਮਚ।
Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm here to with Steve today. Initially, I only joined his campaign because my boss was like Jazz Aurora, our Highway King Transport. We were supporting Steve, but when I got to know Steve, I met his family. I understand he's a very nice person, and then I think he is gonna bring to the community what we need. I think we need a change. There's so much crime. We are paying taxes and stuff, and I think we really need a change. And I'm pretty sure Steve's gonna work on it, and Steve's gonna make it a better community for all of us.
Well, I guess there's a few things. Taxes is a main one. Crime is also something that we are experiencing a lot of in the trucking industry, and it's something that Steve is bringing awareness to, and I think he'll be advocating for that quite heavily. Also for our children, I think he's going to advocate for our children in the community as well, and just make it overall a good community. I think something that we've been looking for a long time. So, yes.
Okay, and what message you want to give it to your age of people, like a youngster, like who they gonna vote? Because it's a big decision. When the times come up, people are so confused because every party bring their good sides on the front, everybody's on the front, but nobody just tell like what their agenda, their policy is, or anything else, right? So you just tell the younger community your view, like how they're gonna choose their right candidate.
Honestly, like in my age group, I think all of us are trying to buy like new houses. We are trying to like buy our own land and stuff, and I understand how hard it is for us these days because of like the high interest rates and stuff like that. And we have seen that our government has been in action like for 8 years and nothing has been done.
I think we really need some change. Like she said, it's been 8 years of the same leaders, and I think this is something that we need to think for our future. And myself, I have children, and I want to think for them as well. So it's a lot to think of as young people, but you just kind of have to make your own judgment and just go with your gut. I think you can only do that. Yeah.
We have researched. As I said, like initially I only joined this campaign because our boss was supporting Steve, but then I got to know him, and he's been with this party for 35 years, and he understands the politics, he understands everything in and out, and he is a farmer. He has like class 1 license, and he knows how because I'm in trucking industry, and he understands the pain that we face all the time, and I think he is going to bring some change. That's really looking forward to it.
I would just like to say that this is our time to make a change. I think we should all come together as a community. I know the East Indian community is well knit, and I think that this is a great opportunity to come together. Like she said, Steve is a true, actual conservative, and he has been here for 35 years. He's been a true part of the Conservative Party, and I think he will bring the change that we are all looking for as a community. So.
Right. Well, Steve and I have known each other for quite a long time, and Steve has been involved in federal politics from a young on when he was university days in Calgary. So he and I have the same viewpoints of what our country needs, and that's conservative values, both fiscal and in values for families. And he stands for all that. And I think our country needs the change desperately. And I think people have been talking about it now for years, and they can see what has happened to our nation and it happened to our province over the last several years under Trudeau and under the NDP. And so, yeah, we're here. I'm here to support him because we both want to make positive change for families. Well, unfortunately, we didn't quite make government this time around. Hopefully next time, and hopefully it's in 2 years. But that was our platform. I ran because I do want to protect family values, and Soji 1 to 3 has to be removed from the schools because parents are being undermined, the values of parents. We're a faith community here in Abbotsford, multiple faiths, and if you need to make sure that those values are supported in our public schools, not undermined. Homelessness, crime, addiction, mental illness, affordability, I mean, it goes on and on and on. That's what the Trudeau government's done, and that's why Steve Schafer is the man, because he can address these issues along with Pierre Poilievre. Well, actually, look at, he is the candidate. He didn't jump on this thing because he became a conservative. He's always been a conservative. The other candidates are opportunists. They want this job as an opportunity, whereas Steve has always been conservative. The history shows he's always been a conservative in fiscally and also in values for family values. He's been that way, and that's why I support him, because he's always been and always will be a conservative, a true conservative.
ਸਟੀਵ ਤੋਂ ਜੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਉਮੀਦਾਂ ਜੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਹਾਲਾਤ ਖਰਾਬ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਹੁਣ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਕਾ ਡਰੱਗ ਅਤੇ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਕੰਮਾਂ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬੁਰਾ ਹਾਲ ਆ, ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਬੁਰਾ ਹਾਲ ਆ। ਹੁਣ ਮੇਰਾ 24-25 ਸਾਲ ਦਾ ਐਕਸਪੀਰੀਅੰਸ ਹੈ ਟਰੱਕਿੰਗ ਦਾ, ਅਤੇ ਇਹ ਐਕਸਪੀਰੀਅੰਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਹੁਣ 1.5 ਮਹੀਨੇ ਤੋਂ ਘਰੇ ਬੈਠਾ। ਦੇਖ ਲਓ ਇੰਨਾ ਕੰਮ ਦਾ ਬੁਰਾ ਹਾਲ ਆ। ਮੈਂ ਕਿਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਤੱਕ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਤੇ ਅਨਪਲਾਈਮੈਂਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਲਿਆ, ਅਤੇ ਜਾਣੀ ਨੌਬਤ ਅਨਪਲਾਈਮੈਂਟ 'ਤੇ ਆਈ ਪਈ ਆ। ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਬੁਰਾ ਹਾਲ ਆ। ਸਰਕਾਰਾਂ ਚੇਂਜ ਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ ਰਹਿਣ ਤਾਂ ਚੰਗਾ ਹੀ ਆ। ਸਾਰੇ ਇਹ ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਕੰਟਰੀ 'ਚ ਐਂ ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ। ਜੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਇੱਕ 'ਤੇ ਹੀ ਵੱਝੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਾ ਫਿਰ ਇਹ ਬੁਰਾ ਹਾਲ ਹੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ। ਇਹ ਹੁਣ ਚੇਂਜ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਨਾ ਰਲ ਕੇ ਚੇਂਜ ਕਰਨੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਹੈ, ਗੌਰਮੈਂਟ ਚੇਂਜ ਕਰਨੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਆ। ਅਤੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਐਪਸਫੋਰਡ ਲੈਂਗਲੀ ਸਾਊਥ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਹੁਣ ਬਹੁਤ ਬੰਦੇ ਆ ਨੋਮੀਨੇਸ਼ਨ ਲਈ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਕੰਮ। ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਹੁਣ ਇਹ ਸਟੀਵ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹਦੀ ਸਪੋਰਟ 'ਤੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਇਕੱਠ ਹੋਇਆ ਵਾ ਅੱਜ, ਅਤੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਏ ਆ ਅਤੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਭਾਈਚਾਰੇ ਨੂੰ ਰਲ ਮਿਲ ਕੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਵੀ ਹੰਭਲਾ ਮਾਰ ਗਏ ਅਤੇ ਆਉਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਦੀ ਚੇਂਜ ਤਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਹੱਥ ਵਟਾਈਏ ਸਾਰੇ ਜਣੇ ਰਲ ਕੇ, ਅਤੇ ਕੁਛ ਨਾ ਕੁਛ ਆਪਣੇ ਲਈ ਵੀ ਭਲਾ ਹੋਵੇ। ਜਵਾਕਾਂ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬੁਰਾ ਹਾਲ ਹੈ। ਇੱਕ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਨਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਕੂਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੜ੍ਹਾਈ ਆ, ਇਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਗਲਤ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਕੰਮ। ਇਹ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਚੇਂਜ ਹੋਣੀਆਂ ਚਾਹੀਦੀਆਂ। ਆਪਾਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਭਾਈ ਕਲਚਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ ਗੀਆਂ।
And this is only going to come about if we are all supporting one party, one goal. So let's do this and make a brighter future for all of us. Thank you.
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ। ਮੇਰਾ ਨਾਮ ਕਿਰਨ ਬੁੱਪੜਾ ਹੈ and I work at Highway King Transport. The only reason, like in the beginning, ਮੈਂ ਸਟੀਵ ਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਲਈ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਕਰਨਾ ਸਟਾਰਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ because my boss, Jazz, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ। But then I got to know Steve. ਮੈਂ ਸਟੀਵ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲੀ, ਮੈਂ ਸਟੀਵ ਦੀ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲੀ। He's such a down to earth person. ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮਿਲੋ, I'm pretty sure ਆਪਾਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲੇ ਆ, ਆਪਾਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲ ਕੇ ਲੱਗਦਾ he's like one of us. ਉਹ ਸਾਡੀ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਸੁਣਦੇ ਆ, ਉਹ ਸਾਡੀ ਪੇਨ ਅੰਡਰਸਟੈਂਡ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਦਾ ਲਾਈਕ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੀ ਇਸ਼ੂਜ਼ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੇ ਆ, ਉਹ ਸਾਰੀ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਸਾਡੀ ਅੰਡਰਸਟੈਂਡ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ। ਆਈ ਥਿੰਕ ਦੈਟਸ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦੇ ਲੀਡਰਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਿਲਦੇ। ਸੋ ਐਂਡ ਦੈਨ ਹੀ ਇਜ਼ ਅ ਫਾਰਮਰ ਟੂ, ਐਂਡ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਹੀ ਹੈਜ਼ ਅ ਕਲਾਸ 1 ਲਾਇਸੈਂਸ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਟਰੱਕ ਵੀ ਡਰਾਈਵ ਕੀਤਾ ਆ, ਐਂਡ ਆਈ ਐਮ ਫਰਮ ਟਰੱਕਿੰਗ ਇੰਡਸਟਰੀ। ਐਂਡ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਇਸ਼ੂਜ਼ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਆ, ਸਾਡੇ ਡਰਾਈਵਰਸ ਨੂੰ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਇਸ਼ੂਜ਼ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਆ, ਐਂਡ ਹੀ ਅੰਡਰਸਟੈਂਡਸ ਇਟ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ, ਅਤੇ ਇਸ ਲਈ ਉਹ ਇਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਉੱਤੇ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਲਈ ਸਾਰੀ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਬੈਟਰ ਕਰ ਸਕਣ। ਐਂਡ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ 35 years ਹੋ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਆ, ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਐਕਸਪੀਰੀਅੰਸ ਹੈ। ਇਫ ਵੀ ਗਿਵ ਹਿਮ ਅ ਚਾਂਸ, ਆਈ ਥਿੰਕ he's gonna do great. ਐਂਡ ਮੈਂ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਸਟੀਵ ਦੀ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਕਰੀਏ ਤੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਮੇਕ ਸ਼ੋਰ ਕਰੀਏ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਜਿੱਤਣ ਤੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਸਭ ਕੁਝ ਸਹੀ ਕਰ ਸਕਣ ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ
So we would like to now have Steve come up.
I guess what I'd say is it's been, almost a year now that I've been doing this campaigning, and it's always so surprising the numbers of people that will still be coming in that I've never had the opportunity to meet, and they all say, well, we didn't know about you. And one of the most difficult things about the last year has been that we have only so much money that we're allowed to spend on this contest. And so it's very difficult also to get any press to want to talk about what's going on here. And so I'm very grateful to the South Asian community, especially because I've reached out to the rest of the media and they're not interested in talking about what I would say is one of the most consequential races that we've got going on here. I've spent the past 28 years in Langley, and Mark Warwell, my friend there, the former and the late MP, was an MP there for 18 years. By the time that Ed Fast retires, he will have been an MP for 18 years. I think with such a consequential decision, that people ought to get to know who the people are in the race and who might represent them for 12, 18 years. So again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for coming out. A really brief introduction about me. I have been, I think I heard in the introduction, again with my bad Punjabi, I've been with the federal party for 35 years, but interestingly, to answer many of the questions, just as I've been going around shaking hands and having conversations, I've also been with the provincial party. This is my second time around taking over the provincial Conservative Party. I'm still on the executive there. We're about to have an AGM in March, so I'll be stepping off. But we are the ones who have been fighting for the things that I think we can all agree needed to happen in the last election. That's fighting against the carbon tax that was brought in by the BC Liberals, fighting against the illegal drug injection sites that was first brought in by the Liberals, and fighting for balanced budgets, which was almost never accomplished under the BC Liberals. Only very first couple of years when Gordon Campbell was still the leader. Never when one of my competition in this race was the finance minister was the budget ever balanced. I know that comes as a shock. It doesn't come as a shock to him because he knows the truth. Anyway, my name is Steve. Many people have asked for so long, why am I doing this? It's very simple. I come from Calgary. I grew up there in the late 70s and early 80s, early mid-80s, at a time when we were coming out of absolute economic devastation. And we were doing it under our current Prime Minister's father. So all of the pain that we're feeling right now is what we were feeling in Alberta at the time. And because many people who are in this room probably come here after that, many of you wouldn't recognize what was going on at the time. But I'll say this, there was high unemployment. Stop me when this sounds familiar. We had record levels of debt. We had runaway deficits. And there was absolutely no putting the brakes on it. The finance minister under then Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau was Jean Chrétien. And what did he say at the time? He said, we didn't just leave the cupboard bare. We had pulled it off and left a gaping hole. We pretty much left the cupboard bare, is what he said. They knew the economic devastation that they had wrought on this country. But my father was in oil and gas at the time, and I remember being in the back of our old 76 Chevy Caprice estate wagon, and we would be driving downtown, and he would be pointing all the lights that were out in the buildings downtown, representing all the jobs that had left. And they had been absolutely annihilated based on, again, stop me if it sounds familiar, but idiotic policies of the Liberal Party. These are things like wage and price controls, things like the National Energy Program that devastated Alberta's oil and gas sector. And it was interesting for me as a kid to have moved out to BC 28 years ago that so few people seem to understand why the country was in recession, why BC wasn't doing as well. And they never tied it to the fact that it's because the Liberal Party destroyed for at least a generation, the oil and gas industry in Alberta. And all of the ancillary benefits, all the people that it employed, all the companies that were employed in BC and Saskatchewan, to say nothing of the hundreds of billions of dollars that have been transferred out of Alberta to the rest of Canada. A lot of people don't recognize that. But for a province that's averaged somewhere between 2 and 4 million people in that time, to have given the rest of Canada hundreds of billions of dollars is an almost unthinkable number, and yet that's the kind of prosperity that still exists in Alberta and in the rest of Canada, and could exist again if government would simply get out of the way. So I moved here, like I said, 28 years ago. I thought I was going to be able to help spread the good conservative message here, and wouldn't you know it, I ended up in Abbotsford, and I ended up marrying my wife I moved to Langley and ended up marrying my wife from Abbotsford, and it turns out we're an extremely conservative community here as well. So, again, been involved with the federal party for 35 years, and been involved, this is the second time now that we've taken over the provincial Conservative Party, and we came very, very close to being able to pull off a victory there. Forgot to mention right off the top, which we should have, I'm very honored to have my good friend here, Corky Neufeld, MLA for Abbotsford West. Sorry about that, forgot to mention. Thank you for being here, Corky. We need next time to be able to paint the rest of this province a solid conservative blue. But thank you for everything you're doing, Corky. I look forward to hopefully being able to work with you on several of the problems that we know we've got here. Thanks for coming. So what am I running on? The four main things. A lot of people like to say, well, what are you specifically going to do for the riding? And I'm happy to talk about that. But at every one of my events, because we're not allowed to go beyond what it is that our leader and our party is running on. Many of you might not realize that, but if you've ever listened to any of the other nomination contestants in this race talk about things that are outside of what we're running on, they're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to go off script. Do we all have ideas of what we'd like to accomplish? Absolutely. And those are ideas that we can bring up with our leader and behind closed caucus doors. I know, for instance, that I want to be able to advocate for farmers in South Langley and South Abbotsford. And again, you know, coming from a family of farmers, and my brother and I who used to work on the farms in the summers, I have a very, very good understanding and appreciation for the hard work that farmers do and what the issues are. As I've so often said, if you don't know the issues up here and in here, it's never going to come out of here. So it's been a pleasure to be able to meet with the farmers, with the trucking community, with, and not just berry farmers, but poultry farmers, dairy farmers over the past year. There are all kinds of issues I'd like to work on, but I want to just touch on the main four right now, which is what Pierre's running on. Axing the tax, building the homes, fixing the budget, and stopping the crime. And my case that I've been trying to make for over a year now is why I am the most experienced and why I am the most conservative and consistent on all of these issues. Then the first one is obvious, axing the tax. Well, part of the reason why we took over the BC Conservative Provincial Party back in 2010 was specifically to fight against the carbon tax. See, some people don't understand, we don't have a carbon tax in Canada because Justin Trudeau brought it in. We have a carbon tax because Christy Clark and Mike DeYoung brought it in. They brought it in on July 1st, 2008. It was North America's first carbon tax, and they were proud of it. And you may have seen that Christy Clark was running for the leadership of the federal Liberal Party. Well, back when she was premier, she used to say, well, she was very conservative. They used to use the line, we are the, what did they say, the coalition, the Free Enterprise Coalition. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. They didn't balance budgets, and they brought in a slush fund that was known as the Pacific Carbon Trust. And it was designed so that they could play games and make it appear as though they had balanced budgets. They never had. From the audience's perspective, if this is time and this is total debt, our debt has done this during the tenure of the BC Liberals. I'm sorry, but those are the facts and they can be looked up. We have a newfangled thing known as the internet. Do not allow yourselves to be deceived. So axing the tax is very simple. I have always been against it, both on that level, also at federal conventions. We made sure that we got rid of it at the federal convention in Ottawa in 2011. There is no more tax about or talk about putting a price on carbon or on pollution. And I always say carbon, and I put the air quotes because it's not carbon, it's carbon dioxide. But it sounds a lot more foolish when you talk about taxing, literally, the air we breathe. But that's what liberals are good for, ridiculousness. So axing the tax, then we have building the homes. And I'm proud to say, although I can't use the title, but a good friend of mine is the past president of the Canadian Home Builders Association. I've met with so many of my friends as builders, and I've gotten to know many of the other builders, especially in Abbotsford. I know many of them in Langley, but it's been great to meet with them and to hear the plight of builders out here. They would love to be able to build more homes. They would love to be able to make them more affordable. But just like Jazz, Roop, who is here, I'm sorry, I'm not sure exactly where, there are so many people representing so many trucking companies as well. No one wants to be charging the rates they are. Builders don't want to charge the rates they are, but it's because of government getting in the way that things are so expensive. We know that Pierre has the right approach, which is freeing up more federal lands, which is tying federal funding to municipalities based on their ability to get out of the way. To quit putting up, as Pierre puts it, the gatekeepers, people who cause lengthy delays in the building process. I'm so grateful that my friend Blair Whitmarsh was here. We had a couple of municipal councillors at one of the last rallies, meet and greets, whatever you want to call it. And I'm grateful to still know so many good people, Patricia Dreesen on Abbotsford Municipal Council as well. And I'm looking forward to being able to work with them on some practical solutions for helping to get more homes built here. I recognize again that the ALR, the Agricultural Land Reserve, needs major redress here in BC. And again, one of those issues I look forward to working with Corky Neufeld on. We have instances here where there is non-arable land, meaning you can't grow anything on it, in Delta and elsewhere, and we can't build homes there? Ridiculous. Most people in here are probably also aware of greenhouses. We could have greenhouses and parking lots, but instead they're taking up some of the most fertile land in the ALR. It's nonsense. We need common sense back in Victoria and in Ottawa, and that's another one of the things that I aim to work on. So that's axing the tax, that's building the homes. The next one, so simple, fixing the budget. One of my political heroes growing up, his name was Ronald Reagan, you may have heard of him. And one of my most favorite quotes about taxes comes from him. He says, "Government does not tax for the money it needs. It always needs every penny it gets in taxes." So it's incumbent on us to shut off the tap and starve the government of money. Why? Because they will never do anything as productively and as efficiently and as economically as the private sector. Almost everyone I've met here is part of the private sector. I have had my own companies. I've employed dozens in my lifetime. I'm used to signing the backs and the fronts of checks for employees, and we all know that it is small business that powers this country and our economy. Oddly enough, the economy does not grow from the heart outwards, as Trudeau said, and budgets don't balance themselves. We're all well aware of that, right? We need to live within our means, and balancing the budget should be one of the easiest things in the world. We've grown addicted to too much spending and vote buying. And finally, we have a leader who's willing to put it all out for everyone to see. We are living beyond our means. We can't afford to do that. And quite frankly, it is immoral for us to run the deficits we have. I'm grateful again that I've got my family at one of my events. It's one of the first times they've been able to join me. And it is mostly for my kids and for yours that I'm doing this. I've only told a few people this, but when our son Freddie was born, he represented the 7th generation of Schafers that have grown up in this country, that have lived in this country. And it hurts me as a parent, as a father, that we could be living through the first generation where things get markedly worse. I've met so many people in the South Asian community that came here within the last decade or so because they were promised a better life, and it all seemed as though things would be much better in Canada. But over the last 9 years, we've watched things go in reverse, and it's to our everlasting shame that we allow that to happen under our watch. So another one of the reasons I'm running is to say, not on my watch. So, balancing the budget, very simple. We just need to have the spine and the political will to say we need to rein in our spending. And the very last one is stopping the crime. And on that one, again, I would take a backseat to no one. I always like to point out that we have two border crossings in this riding of Abbotsford South Langley. We have the Sumas crossing and we have the Aldergrove crossing. And we're just 8 streets away on the western border of this riding from the truck crossing in Surrey. And a very good friend of mine, again, I can't give you his name, I can't even give you his position, but very well placed at the CBSA, informs me reliably that we are over 150 full-time equivalent short-staffed on our borders. So we have a major, porous southern border where people are not being screened properly. We have only processing happening, which means if you spend money down in the States, they just want to make sure that you're paying your fair share in taxes to Ottawa. Make sense? Are they concerned about security? Apparently not. What is one of the things that Donald Trump has said he cares so much about? Us fixing the problem at our porous southern border. That's going to become an increasingly major issue that tariffs are going to be charged based on. And I was grateful to have my friend Dick Jones out here as well, representing Dick Jones Lumber, and he knows very well the effect that all of these tariffs are going to be having. He's already been hit in the lumber industry and had to lay off hundreds and hundreds of people, which will put even more pressure on the economy because they won't be paying taxes. He won't be paying as much in corporate taxes. The foolish decisions of the Liberals are hurting us all. And what I want to say about stopping the crime, because it's one of the reasons why I got to know Jazz, I'm sorry, I don't even know where he's sitting, oh, there we go, in the first place. Many of you are familiar with his story that was highlighted on CBC and elsewhere, the extortion issue that's going on, predominantly within the South Asian community, and there's not enough attention being drawn to this issue. But I always like to say, where do people think the drugs and the guns are coming from that fuel all of this? It's coming from that border. So as the former vice president of the Langley Rod and Gun Club, as someone who is a restricted firearms owner, I always point this out, and I want to say, I am scrutinized more carefully, more thoroughly than anyone else in Canada. Why? Because as a restricted firearms owner, licensed owner, that means that my name every 24 hours is run through the 2 national police databases, CPIC and Prime. And it's done to see if I've committed any crimes in the last 24 hours. I also get a regular credit rating check done on me. I'm not sure how often that happens. I don't believe it's every 24 hours. That's designed so that in case my credit rating takes a dip, they can be assured that I'm not going to take one of my guns and go rob a bank. They reserve the right, if the police ever come to your place, in order to search it, they require a warrant. Well, they don't require a warrant to come to my place. And the reason they don't is I've relinquished that right. I've said it is right and proper for you to make sure that I'm storing my firearms and my ammunition properly. I've waived that right as a responsible firearms owner. My point in saying all of this is I am one of the safest people in all of Canada, and I can prove it every 24 hours because I still own my guns. And who do the Liberals always come after? Law-abiding gun owners. And they do it pretending they're doing something good for the community. It is not law-abiding gun owners that are coming over to Jazz's house and making threats to his family and his business. And at least a dozen other people that I've talked to over the last year who've been hit by the scourge of extortion gangs here. We will put those to an end. And I'm grateful to be working with Abbotsford, as I have for the last little while, with councillors there who are aware of the problem, as in Langley. And I know we are going to be able to get more funding to ensure that we put an end to that nonsense. That's the 4 main priorities: axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. I'm happy to put my record up against anyone else who's running in this competition. Again, I want to thank everybody for coming out. I know that I have not been a household name here in Abbotsford, and I appreciate the work that everyone's been doing to spread the word. On everybody's table, you've got rack cards there. It has my personal cell phone number that I've had for almost 30 years since I've been out here, and my personal email address. If you have any questions, if there are people that you could convince to become a member of the party, would you please encourage them to get a hold of me? Well, first to take out a membership, but if they have questions, please have them give me a call. I would be happy to come out, have a coffee, take whatever time it takes to have those conversations. I've put my life and my business on hold to be able to do this almost exclusively for the past year. And I gotta say again, and I'm so grateful to my family, most especially my wife, Lisa, for having put up with me for the last year. So many people don't realize the pressure that it puts on families to be able to support the people who are running and who are in office, and I'm in awe of what Lisa's been able to do. Thank you very much. Deeply appreciate their sacrifice, without whom I couldn't even be here. So I am going to be here until the very end. I'm very happy to be able to take some questions from the audience. I always leave significant time. I've run myriad campaigns municipally, provincially, and federally. Again, I'm still on the executive of the provincial party. I'm happy to answer questions on federal, provincial, or municipal levels. But thank you all once again for being here. There's still plenty of food. Please help yourself. Thank you once again. Appreciate it. Well, good afternoon, and thank you so much. There's so few media companies who have been paying attention to the race that's going on right now to replace Ed Fast in Abbotsford South Langley. It's a very consequential race, so I'm just grateful that I'm being given an opportunity to speak about it. My name's Steve Schafer. I am running for the nomination to replace Ed Fast as the candidate for the Conservative Party of Canada in Abbotsford South Langley. I'm from Calgary originally, in a riding where we used to have Preston Manning and Stephen Harper as my MPs. And I'm running because we've seen in Calgary and out here, but when I grew up, we saw the economic devastation that was wrought by our current Prime Minister's father, Pierre Trudeau. And having lived through the ridiculous policies of the 70s of wage and price controls, of the national energy program that was developed to steal billions of dollars out of Alberta, and it was essentially a spy agency, a government spy agency designed to make sure that we weren't preventing Ottawa from getting its fair share of extra billions of dollars for the oil industry. It absolutely destroyed our economy. It was done basically on purpose, and I saw, again, the fallout from that. So I'm trying to prevent that from happening again by giving voice to this. People have far often too short of memories in politics. So why am I getting involved now in this race? Well, I've been out here for 28 years now. My wife from Abbotsford, and we now live in Langley, and we've been raising our 2 kids out there. I am concerned that my son, who will be the 7th generation of Schafers in this country, will, and my daughter, of course, but that generation could be the first generation where we go backwards. And as a father, obviously, we want to see the best for our children, and it's killing me to think that one day I might have to go outside of the country to go one day meet my grandkids. So I'm in it for them. I'm in it because Pierre Poilievre has resonated with me, as I'm sure he has with many of you. And the 4 major priorities that he's been running his campaign on, axing the tax, building the homes, fixing the budget, and stopping the crime, are things that obviously resonate with me. And I would submit that I am the most experienced and the most conservative. And I have I'm making that case at every single event that I host, including this one today, and I'll be speaking about that later. So I'm definitely running on all of those issues. I'll talk about that more in depth later. Very specific Abbotsford South Langley issues. We have a lot of farmers here. I come from a proud farming background. My father is the first one to have left the farm to pursue another career path. He was an electrical engineer in the oil and gas sector. But we did, my brother and I, go to the farm and work there on summers, every summer. So I'm well acquainted with the plight of farmers. I know about what's going on in South Langley and South Abbotsford with berry farmers, and we are going to be working hard to make sure that they are able to get the help that they need economically. I also have a Class 1 license. We have several truckers in the audience here, and I know how many trucking companies we have here. We need to make sure that we get rid of things, obviously, like the carbon tax. It's not a silver bullet. There are several other issues where I'm going to be happy to be working with several of the municipal councillors, both from Abbotsford and Langley. I'm proud to say I have the support of so many of them. We need to obviously be able to solve the parking problem, which has become a major issue all over in the Lower Mainland. I also want to be able to work with my provincial partners on land issues. The ALR is something that obviously requires some redress, and we have some practical solutions. I don't want to unpack all of that right now, but I'm also on the executive of the Provincial Conservative Party. We took that party over to be able to fight against some ridiculous things, such as SOGI, which we knew nobody wanted, to fight against the carbon tax that the BC Liberals brought in, to fight against illegal drug injection sites, all of those things. So working with my partners and my friends in the provincial Conservative opposition, so many of them that recently became MLAs due to a whole bunch of hard work from all the people on our team. So proud of them. We know we're going to be able to address things like that in the ALR. But again, my name's Steve Schafer. We are running out of time in this race. There's probably only about another week, maybe two, to sign up new members. If you're at all interested in hearing more about me, please visit my website at www.steveschafer.ca, and you can give me a call at any time. Hopefully we'll make the number available on screen, but it's 604-837-9722, and I hope to be able to hear from you.
ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਅੱਜ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ ਸੀ ਗਿਆਨ ਸਵੀਟ ਸ਼ਾਪ ਐਬਸਫੋਰਡ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਅੱਜ ਸਟੀਵ ਸ਼ੈਫਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਮੀਟ ਗ੍ਰੀਟ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ। ਸੋ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨਸ ਦੀ, ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਹੋਵੇ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਸਰਚ ਕਰਿਆ ਕਰੋ, ਉਸ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਜਾਣਿਆ ਕਰੋ ਕਿ ਉਹਦੀਆਂ ਪਾਲਿਸੀਜ਼ ਕੀ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ, ਕਿਵੇਂ ਉਹ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਚੇਂਜ ਲਿਆ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ। ਸੋ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਤੱਕ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਉਣ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰਦੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਸੋ ਕੀਪ ਵਾਚਿੰਗ ਪਲੱਸ TV ਐਂਡ ਬਿਕੌਰ ਮੀਡੀਆ। ਮੈਨੂੰ ਦਿਓ ਇਜਾਜ਼ਤ। ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਜੀ।